Don't open it. Can't you see? My wife, Amanda, shouted from across the hall, dropping the bouquet she was holding. I was standing next to the gift table, holding an elegant envelope that had just arrived by special delivery. The guy said it was urgent, and that my mother had paid an extra fee to ensure it arrived during the ceremony. The envelope was thick, creamy, with my name written in gold calligraphy. It looked expensive. It looked important. But Amanda was rushing toward me, her wedding dress flowing, her eyes wide with panic. "Ryan, seriously, don't open that letter right now," she said, panting, stopping beside me. "Look at the date on the postmark." I turned the envelope over. The postmark showed that it had been mailed 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks before our wedding. "My name is Ryan, I'm 32 years old, and I just realized that my mother planned to send a surprise to my own wedding weeks in advance. The same kind of surprise she always sent when she wanted me to take the blame for something my sister Jessica had done." Amanda took my free hand. "Honey, remember what happened on your birthday last year? And your graduation? Whenever your family sends something special like that." She didn't need to finish. I remembered perfectly. On my 31st birthday, I received a gift from my parents, an expensive tool set that I later discovered had been purchased with a cloned credit card. The police knocked on my door 3 days later. At my graduation, I received a beautiful tribute, a watch engraved with my name that I later discovered was smuggled. The FBI interrogated me for 6 hours. And always, my sister Jessica was innocently involved, but never guilty of anything. "Maybe it's different this time," I whispered, but my voice sounded unconvincing even to myself. Amanda shook her head. "Ryan, look at our guests. Look at the Reverend. This is our moment. Why would your mother choose right now to send something that couldn't wait until after the honeymoon?" She was right. My mother, Linda, had never done anything spontaneous or affectionate in her life. Every gesture she made had a calculated purpose. I looked around the decorated hall. 200 guests watched us, some whispering to each other, curious about the commotion near the gift table. My father sat in the front row, smiling strangely, as if he knew a joke I hadn't gotten yet. Jessica was right next to him, fiddling with her phone, seemingly disinterested, but I noticed she glanced at me out of the corner of her eye every few seconds. "Let's put this aside for now," Amanda suggested, trying to take the envelope from my hand. But I held on tight. "No. If it's a trap, I need to know now. Before it's too late." Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't alone. I had Amanda. And if my family was planning to use me as a scapegoat again, this time they would have to face both of us. Amanda squeezed my hand. "Then let's open it together. But not here, not in front of everyone." I nodded. We walked quietly to the small office behind the altar, where the Reverend kept his materials. My hands trembled slightly as I carefully tore open the envelope, trying to preserve any evidence that might be important later. Inside was a handwritten letter and a small gold key. The letter began, "My dear son, on the most important day of your life, we want you to know how much we trust you. If you're enjoying this manipulative family story and want to find out what kind of trap they've set for Ryan's wedding, don't forget to subscribe to the channel." But as I read those seemingly loving words, Amanda pointed to something that made my blood run cold. The signature at the bottom of the letter wasn't my mother's. It was Jessica's. And I was about to find out that this wasn't just another one of her family manipulations. It was something much, much worse. Amanda read the letter over my shoulder, her breathing quickening with each line. "Ryan, this doesn't make sense. Your mother never writes handwritten letters. And why would Jessica sign her name if it was supposed to be a gift from Mom and Dad?" I kept reading, my anger growing with every sugary word. The letter talked about absolute trust, and how I had always been the responsible son who knew how to handle delicate situations. But it was the last line that made me feel sick. "The key opened storage unit 342 at Storage King on 5th Avenue. Jessica said you'd understand why." My sister Jessica. 29 years of pure manipulation wrapped in sweet smiles and strategic tears. Since childhood, she had perfected the art of turning her problems into mine. When she was 8 and broke the neighbor's window playing ball, she cried so much that my parents decided that I, as her older brother, should have taken better care of her. I paid for the window with my allowance. At 16, when she crashed my dad's car at a party where she had been drinking, somehow it was my fault for not picking her up like a good brother would. I lost my license for 6 months as punishment for not being responsible. In college, Jessica discovered she could use my name and personal information to open accounts, take out extra student loans, even sign up for credit cards. By the time I found out, I was already $47,000 in debt that I never incurred. I confronted my parents. My mother's response was classic. Jessica is going through a tough time, Ryan. You have a job. You can handle it. It took me 3 years to clear my name and my credit. But the worst came 2 years ago when Jessica started her online art business. She showed up at my house, red-eyed, lip-trembling, with a story about how she had accidentally gotten involved with the wrong people. She said she had bought some pieces of art from a guy she met at a gallery, but later found out they were stolen. I didn't know, Ryan. I swear to God, I didn't know. But if the police find this stuff in my house... She cried for 2 hours. My parents called 3 times during the date, begging me to help my little sister. I just need a place to store the pieces until I figure out how to return them without incriminating myself, she said. You have that big basement. No one will ever look there. Amanda, who was my girlfriend at the time, begged me not to agree. Ryan, this seems too convenient. Why doesn't she get a lawyer? Why does she need to hide something if she's really innocent? But I looked at Jessica, 27 years old at the time, looking like a lost child, and I felt that old familiar pressure. The automatic responsibility for her well-being. I let her store 7 boxes in my basement for a few weeks. 3 months later, I discovered that Jessica hadn't accidentally bought stolen art. She was running a full-blown forgery and resale operation, using fake documents with my name and address as an authenticity consultant. The police knocked on my door on a Tuesday morning. Search warrant. They found the 7 boxes in my basement, each containing perfect replicas of famous works with forged certificates. Certificates that had my signature on them. Or at least, a very good imitation of my signature. I spent 18 hours at the police station trying to explain that I had never seen those documents before in my life. That my sister had tricked me. That I was the victim, not the accomplice. The detective looked at me with that expression I knew so well. Man, your sister is a small crying woman. You think she could orchestrate something like this on her own? Jessica, of course, disappeared. When the police went looking for her, they found that she had moved temporarily to a friend's house in another state. Her parents said she was emotionally devastated to find out that I was using her for my schemes. It took me 8 months and $22,000 in legal fees to prove my innocence. Jessica was never prosecuted. Lack of evidence, they said. Apparently, a traumatized young woman who had been manipulated by her older brother was not a priority target. Amanda held my hand as I finished reading the letter. Ryan, you can't open that storage unit. You can't even go near it. This is obviously another trap. I knew she was right. But I also knew that this time, Jessica had made a mistake. She had left physical evidence. A handwritten letter. Her own signature. Amanda, I need to know what's in that storage unit. Why? So you can incriminate yourself again. No. So I can finally prove what she really is. Because for the first time in 32 years, Jessica had left a direct trail to her. And I had recorded the phone conversation where my mother confirmed that they had planned this. I looked at Amanda, my new wife, standing there in her wedding dress, supporting me even as my own family tried to destroy me on the most important day of our lives. Honey, what if this time it's not about getting me out of trouble? What if it's about making sure she can never do this to anyone else? Amanda studied my face for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. What are you thinking? I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the inside pocket of my suit, along with the key. I'm thinking it's time to find out exactly what my dear little sister was planning for my wedding. Because if Jessica thought she could use the happiest day of my life to frame me in yet another one of her schemes, she was about to find out she'd picked the wrong opponent. And this time, I had witnesses. 200 of them, all dressed up for a celebration that was about to turn into something very different. 30 minutes later, we were driving down 5th Avenue toward Storage King, still dressed in our wedding attire. Amanda held my hand tightly as I drove, her bouquet tossed in the back seat next to my jacket. The guests were still at the reception, probably wondering where the bride and groom had disappeared to. Ryan, I still think we should call the police first, Amanda said for the 5th time. And say what? That my sister sent me a suspicious key at my wedding? They'll ask for evidence. I need to know what's in that storage unit. Storage King was one of those ugly industrial buildings with endless rows of metal units. Number 342 was on the third floor, tucked away at the end of a dimly lit hallway. My hand trembled slightly as I inserted the key into the lock. "Last chance to turn back," Amanda whispered. I shook my head and turned the key. The door swung open with a metallic creak, revealing a 10-foot by 10-foot unit, almost completely filled. Boxes stacked to the ceiling. At least 20 of them. All labeled with codes that meant nothing to me, but clearly followed some organizational system. Amanda turned on her cell phone flashlight and illuminated the nearest labels. "Ryan, look at this." She pointed to a box marked RM Wedding Batch 1. RM. Ryan Miller. My name was literally coded into the labels. I carefully opened the first box. Inside were dozens of forged documents. Birth certificates, passports, driver's licenses. All with different photos, but all with variations of my name. Ryan Matthew Miller. Robert M. Miller. R. Mitchell Miller. "My God," Amanda whispered, picking up one of the passports. "This one has your photo, Ryan. But look at the date of birth. It says you were born in 1987 instead of 1991. I continued opening boxes, each one revealing a new level of horror. The second box contained art purchase and sale agreements, all signed with versions of my signature. Millions of dollars in transactions I had never seen before in my life. The third box had photographs. Hundreds of them. Photos of me taken secretly over the last 2 years. Getting in and out of work. At the grocery store. At the gym. Even some taken through my window at home. "Jessica was stalking me," I said, my voice coming out hoarser than I intended. Amanda picked up one of the photos. It was me leaving a building I didn't recognize. "Ryan, have you ever been to this place?" I shook my head. I've never seen this building in my life. But on the back of the photo, someone had written, "Ryan Miller visits art gallery to inspect pieces, March 15th, 2 p.m. March 15th. The day I was at the dentist for a root canal. I had receipts proving where I was. The fourth box was when my world really fell apart. Electronic devices. Cell phones, tablets, laptops. All set up with accounts in my name. Emails, social media profiles, even bank accounts I'd never opened. Amanda called one of the cell phones. The screen showed hundreds of text messages between Ryan Miller and international art buyers. Conversations about illegal transactions. About how to get around customs. About forging authenticity documents. Conversations I never had, on a phone I never owned, but they looked completely authentic. "This isn't just Jessica's operation," I said, sitting heavily on one of the boxes. "This is an industrial operation. Someone is using my identity to build an international criminal empire." Amanda continued exploring, her expression growing more serious with each discovery. "Ryan, there's more." She showed me a folder labeled, "Final Plan Wedding." Inside was a detailed timeline. Every step of what was supposed to happen at my wedding was documented. Hand over the key, during the ceremony. Discover the safe, wedding night. Arrest Ryan Miller, next morning. Complete transfer of operations to Jessica Miller, next week. There were even copies of an anonymous tip already prepared, describing exactly where the police should look for evidence against me. "They planned for me to find this on our honeymoon," I whispered. "They wanted me to be arrested as a wedding present." Amanda pointed to the last line of the timeline. Complete transfer of operations to Jessica Miller. "Ryan, your sister wasn't using you as a scapegoat. She was building a fake version of you to take over this whole scheme after you were arrested." That's when my cell phone rang. It was my mother. I looked at Amanda. She nodded. I answered and put it on speakerphone. "Ryan, honey, where did you and Amanda disappear to? The guests are asking." Her voice sounded too sweet. Just like it sounded when she was lying. "We're sorting out the gift you sent," I said calmly. Silence for a few seconds. "Oh. I'm glad you like it. Jessica will be so happy to hear that." "I'm sure she will." "Well, I hope you're not too late." It would be a shame if you missed your own party. It would be a shame indeed, I replied. Especially considering everything we've discovered here. Another silence, this one longer. I don't know what you're talking about, Ryan. Of course you do, Mom. The question is, how long have you and Dad known about this whole operation? We don't know anything about any operation. Her voice became high-pitched, defensive. Just like when Jessica broke something and my mother lied to protect me from getting blamed. Then how do you explain the photos of me that were taken over the last 2 years? How do you explain the forged documents with my signature? How do you explain the detailed schedule of my own wedding? Total silence. Mom. Ryan, you have to understand. Jessica was in a difficult situation. She needed help. There it was. The admission I had been waiting for. What kind of help? She got involved with some bad people. They were threatening her. They said she had to turn someone in to take the fall or what, Mom? Or they'd hurt her. Amanda rolled her eyes and muttered, sure. So you decided to turn me in. It wasn't like that. It was a temporary solution. Jessica said she could fix everything after things calmed down. After I was arrested for crimes I didn't commit. Ryan, you're stronger. You've always been stronger. You could handle it. The same excuse as always. I was stronger, so it was my job to absorb Jessica's problems. And how long have you been helping Jessica build this fake identity for me? Silence again. Mom, how long? 3 years, she finally muttered. 3 years. For 3 whole years, my own family had collaborated to build a criminal version of myself. Where is Jessica now? She's not here. Where is she, Mom? At the airport. 9:30 flight to Costa Rica. I looked at my watch. 8:15. Which terminal? Ryan, please, you don't understand. Which terminal? Terminal 3. United Flight 627. I hung up and looked at Amanda. She's leaving the country in 1 hour and 15 minutes. Amanda took my hand. What do you want to do? I looked around the warehouse. 3 years of meticulous planning. 3 years of my family building a fake version of me to use as a scapegoat. 3 years of Jessica taking secret photos, forging my signature, creating a lifetime of crimes in my name. And now she was fleeing to Costa Rica, probably with millions of dollars she had stolen, hoping I would be arrested on her honeymoon for crimes she had committed. Amanda, do you still have the number of the detective who helped me with the fake paintings? She nodded. Call him. Tell him we have evidence of an international fraud operation and the prime suspect is trying to flee the country in 70 minutes. While Amanda made the call, I began methodically photographing every item in the storage unit. Every forged document. Every secretly taken photo. Every piece of evidence of my own family's betrayal. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to accept being Jessica's scapegoat. This time, she was going to face the consequences of her own actions. And my family was going to find out that sacrificing one child to save another comes at a very high price. Amanda's phone rang. It was the detective. He said he can intercept the flight if we have solid evidence. I smiled for the first time since I opened that envelope at my wedding. We have enough evidence to send Jessica and my parents to prison for the next 20 years. Because Jessica had made one fatal mistake in her perfect plan. She had documented everything. The detective arrived at Storage King in 17 minutes. Detective Rodriguez was the same man who had helped me with the fake paintings 2 years ago. He knew me. He knew I didn't make things up. Jesus Christ, Ryan, he said, looking around the storage unit. How many years have they been planning this? 3 years, according to my mother. Amanda was methodically organizing the documents into separate piles. Fake IDs, fraudulent contracts, surveillance photographs, electronic devices. I need you to document everything before we touch anything, Rodriguez said, calling the tech team. This is going to be used as federal evidence. While we waited for the team to arrive, I continued exploring the remaining boxes. In the 5th box, I found something that made me feel physically sick. Copies of my house keys. My current house. Not the old one, where we lived when Jessica was still welcome. They had copies of the keys to the house where Amanda and I had lived for only 8 months. How the hell did they get these? Amanda asked, seeing the keys in my hand. Rodriguez took one and examined it. These are professional copies. They weren't made at some corner key shop. In the 6th box was more evidence of invasion of our privacy. Receipts for purchases made with credit cards in my name. Utility bills for addresses where I never lived. Even a life insurance policy in my name, with Jessica as the beneficiary. Ryan, look at this, Amanda said, showing me an open tablet. There are cameras installed. The screen showed 4 different angles. I immediately recognized our living room, our bedroom, the kitchen, and even my home office. Jessica had turned our house into a personal reality show. How long have these cameras been running? I asked. Amanda checked the history. 6 months. They have 6 months of recordings of our private lives. Rodriguez shook his head. That's a federal crime. Invasion of privacy, illegal surveillance, identity theft on an industrial scale. My phone rang again. It was Jessica. I looked at Rodriguez. He nodded and motioned for me to answer it. Hi, Ryan. Her voice sounded too sweet, as it always did when she wanted something. I heard you and Amanda left the party early. Is everything okay? We're sorting out the gift you sent. Oh, that's nice. I hope you liked it. Jessica, where are you right now? Silence for a few seconds. Why? Just curious. Mom said you weren't at the party. I'm taking care of some personal things. What kind of things? Nothing important. Look, Ryan, I need to tell you something. About the deposit. My heart raced. What deposit? You know what deposit. If anyone asks, you don't know anything, okay? You were never there. Jessica, what are you talking about? Ryan, please. If you love me, if you care about our family, just say you don't know anything. The same emotional manipulation as always. Appealing to my love for her to make me an accomplice to her crimes. And if I don't? Then you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Rodriguez was recording everything. Jessica, are you threatening me? I'm not threatening you, Ryan. I'm warning you. There are some very dangerous people involved in this. People who won't like it if they find out you've opened your mouth. What people, Jessica? You don't understand the situation you're in. I'm not in any situation. You got me into this. Ryan, listen. You still have time to get out of this clean. Throw away everything you found in the warehouse. Say you never saw anything. And I guarantee nothing will happen to you. And if I don't? Then you'll find out that some choices can't be taken back. She hung up. Rodriguez stopped recording. She just confessed and threatened you on the same call. If you've been following this story of a manipulative family and want to see how Ryan will use all this evidence against Jessica, subscribe to the channel because revenge is just beginning. The technical team arrived and began systematically photographing and cataloging every item in the storage unit. It would take hours to process everything. But Jessica thought she had hours. I looked at my watch. 8:45. 45 minutes until her flight took off. Rodriguez, how long do you need to get a warrant to arrest Jessica at the airport? With this evidence? 15 minutes. Then get the warrant. I'm going to the airport. Ryan, no. You stay here. This is police work now. She's my sister. And today is my wedding day. If anyone is going to confront her before she leaves the country, it's me. Amanda took my hand. We're going. Amanda, you don't have to. Ryan, we've been married for 4 hours. That means her problems are now our problems. And her victories are ours too. Rodriguez sighed. All right. But you're going as civilians. Let the cops do the arresting. You just watch. 20 minutes later, we were driving to the airport in a 3-car motorcade. Rodriguez and 2 police officers in front, Amanda and I in the middle, the technical team with the evidence in the back. My phone rang again. It was my mother. Ryan, where are you? Going to pay Jessica a farewell visit. What? Ryan, no. You can't. Mom, for 32 years, I've accepted being Jessica's scapegoat. I've accepted that my life is considered less important than hers. I've accepted that my problems are less valid. Ryan, please. Today is my wedding day. And you tried to send me to prison as a wedding present. That's not what it was. That's exactly what it was. And you know what else? For 3 years, you helped Jessica build a fake criminal identity. 3 years planning to use my own wedding to frame me. Silence. But you made a mistake, Mom. What mistake? You documented everything. Jessica kept evidence of every crime she committed in my name. And now the police have access to everything. Ryan, you don't understand the consequences. I understand the consequences perfectly well. Jessica is going to be arrested. So are you. And for the first time in my life, I'm going to watch someone in our family face the real consequences of their actions. I hung up and looked at Amanda. Ready to see the airport as newlyweds? She smiled. Ready to see Jessica get exactly what she deserves. Because for 32 years, my family had used my sense of responsibility against me. Today, I was going to find out that responsibility works both ways. And Jessica was about to learn that running away to Costa Rica wasn't going to be as easy as she thought. Especially when all her escape routes were already being monitored by the federal police. Terminal 3 at the airport was crowded even for a Thursday night. Rodriguez and his team positioned themselves strategically near the gate for Flight 627. Amanda and I sat down at Starbucks with a direct view of the waiting area. There she is, Amanda whispered, pointing discreetly. Jessica was sitting in the third row, nervously fiddling with her cell phone. She had cut and dyed her hair blonde, was wearing sunglasses even though she was inside the terminal, and carried only a small backpack. The visual transformation was impressive, but I would have recognized her anywhere. She really thought a change of look would be enough, I muttered. Rodriguez approached our table, pretending to be a passenger. We have a problem, he said quietly. The name on her ticket isn't Jessica Miller. My stomach sank. What name is she using? Jennifer Martinez. Completely new passport, issued 3 weeks ago. Amanda and I looked at each other. Jessica had planned this escape much further in advance than we had realized. Does that change anything? I asked. It means we can't arrest her on the warrant for Jessica Miller. We need evidence linking Jennifer Martinez to Jessica Miller. That's when my phone rang. It was Jessica. Rodriguez motioned urgently for me to take it. Ryan, where are you? Her voice sounded tense, paranoid. At home, why? Because there are police cars at our parents' house. And there are people questioning the neighbors about you. I looked at Rodriguez. He nodded. It was true. They had sent a team to arrest my parents as well. Jessica, where are you? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're screwed. They're going to pin everything on you. Pin what on me, Jessica? The entire operation. The forged documents. The embezzled money. Everything. It was exactly the confession Rodriguez needed. He was recording everything. What operation, Jessica? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play innocent with me. You knew exactly what was going on when you signed those contracts. I never signed any contracts. Of course you did. I have copies of your signature on dozens of documents. Rodriguez smiled. She had just admitted to forging documents. Jessica, you're confusing me with someone else. Ryan, listen. I can still fix this. I can still say you're innocent. But you have to do exactly what I say. What do you want me to do? First, you need to admit that you knew the international buyers. You need to say that you were the one who made the connections. She was trying to get me to confess to crimes I didn't commit, live on a recorded phone call. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, I'll reveal the truth about Amanda. My blood ran cold. Reveal what about Amanda? That she knew everything. That she helped you forge the documents. That she was the one who suggested using family documents to open the accounts. Amanda turned pale beside me. Jessica, Amanda has nothing to do with this. She is. And I have proof. Photographs of her entering the warehouse. Recordings of the two of you talking about the contracts. It was a lie. It had to be. Amanda had only found out about the warehouse today. But then I remembered the cameras Jessica had installed in our house. 6 months of recordings of our private life. What kind of recordings? Conversations where Amanda talks about hiding money. About creating fake identities. About how easy it would be to frame my family if something went wrong. Rodriguez frowned. He knew this didn't make sense either. Jessica, you're lying. Am I? Then explain how Amanda knew exactly where to look in the storage unit today. Explain how she knew the box codes. Explain how she knew what kind of evidence to look for. My mind started racing. Amanda had been very efficient in organizing the evidence in the storage unit. She knew exactly how to categorize the documents. She knew the correct legal terms. Ryan, are you still there? Yes. Good. Here's the deal. You confess that you were the mastermind behind everything. I confirm that Amanda is innocent. And we both get reduced sentences for cooperation. And if I don't accept, then Amanda goes to prison as the principal accomplice. And trust me, the evidence I have against her is much more convincing than anything you guys have against me. That's when I heard the announcement over the airport PA system. United Flight 627 to San Jose, Costa Rica, boarding first class. Jessica hung up immediately. I looked at Rodriguez. Is she bluffing about Amanda? Probably. But we can't take any chances. If she really has fake evidence connecting Amanda to the crimes, then what do we do? Amanda took my hand. Ryan, you can't sacrifice yourself for me. And I won't let you go to jail for crimes you didn't commit. That's when my phone rang again. This time it was my mother. Ryan, the police just arrested us. Her voice was broken, desperate. Where are you? At the police station. They said we're Jessica's accomplices. That we helped her build a false identity for her. You did help her. Not in the way they're saying. We didn't know the extent of it all. You knew enough. Ryan, please. You have to tell them we didn't know anything. That we were manipulated too. How were Amanda and I manipulated? It's not the same thing. It's exactly the same thing, Mom. The difference is that you chose to sacrifice me to protect Jessica. Amanda and I were victims. Ryan, if you don't help us, we'll lose everything. The house, our savings, our reputation. You should have thought about that before spending 3 years building a criminal version of me. I hung up and looked at the boarding gate. Jessica was in line, third in first class. Rodriguez, it's now or never. He spoke into his radio. Team move. 6 plainclothes officers approached Jessica discreetly. I stood up and walked over to her, Rodriguez at my side. Hi Jennifer, I said loud enough for her to hear. Jessica turned, saw my face, and immediately tried to run. The officers surrounded her before she could take 3 steps. Jessica Miller, you are under arrest for identity fraud, document forgery, and conspiracy to commit federal crimes. As they handcuffed her, she shouted at me. Ryan, you don't know what you just did. You don't know who you've been messing with. Actually, I know exactly who I was messing with, I replied calmly. A pathological liar who will finally be held accountable for her crimes. As they led her away, Jessica turned to me one last time. This isn't over, Ryan. You'll find out you picked the wrong side. Rodriguez approached me. What did she mean by that? I shook my head. Probably just more drama from Jessica. She's always been prone to theatricality. But as I watched my sister being escorted away by airport security, a part of me wondered if she really was bluffing about the evidence against Amanda. And if she wasn't, what else did she have in store as a backup plan? Because Jessica never did anything without at least 3 emergency exits. And I was about to find out that arresting her was just the beginning of a much bigger revelation about what my family was truly capable of. 3 weeks later, we were sitting in Detective Rodriguez's office receiving the final report. The evidence against Amanda was completely fabricated, he said, sliding a folder across the table. Jessica used deepfake technology to create conversations that never happened. She manipulated recordings from your home security cameras. It was all a lie. Amanda squeezed my hand, relieved. What about the dangerous people Jessica mentioned? I asked. Rodriguez laughed. Other fraudsters like her. Small-time criminals who are already cooperating with the investigation in exchange for deals. The criminal empire that had seemed so threatening turned out to be a house of cards built by desperate liars. Jessica was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Identity fraud, money laundering, cybercrimes. No possibility of parole for 4 years. My parents received 3 years of house arrest and lost their home to pay restitution. The entire community found out how they had tried to sacrifice their own child. At the trial, Jessica attempted one last manipulation. She cried in court, saying she was a victim of family pressure and that she never meant to hurt her brother. But the evidence spoke louder than her tears. 6 months later, I received a letter from prison. Jessica was asking for forgiveness and saying she had learned her lesson. I tore it up without reading it to the end. Amanda and I moved to another city. Away from the toxicity, away from the memories, away from people who thought that knowing my family made me somehow responsible for their crimes. I started my own digital security consulting firm, helping people who had been victims of identity fraud. Ironically, my experience with Jessica made me an expert on the subject. Today, 5 years later, I have a team of 15 people. We help hundreds of victims a year rebuild their stolen identities. Amanda opened a law firm specializing in family crimes. She uses our experience to help others who have been betrayed by relatives. Last week, my mother tried to call me for the first time in 2 years. I didn't answer. Some bridges are burned for a reason. For 32 years, I accepted being my family's scapegoat. I accepted that my problems mattered less than Jessica's. I accepted being sacrificed whenever she needed someone to blame. At my own wedding, they tried to send me to federal prison as a wedding gift. But I discovered something powerful. Family isn't who you're related to by blood. Family is who protects you, supports you, and never uses you as a disposable pawn. If you're going through a similar situation with a toxic family or people who try to use you as a scapegoat, subscribe to the channel. Here you'll find more stories of people who said enough is enough and took control of their lives. The last I heard, Jessica was in the prison infirmary with severe depression. Apparently, she discovered that tears don't work on other criminals. Me? Well, I'm planning to expand my company to 3 new cities. Turns out that being the responsible son really pays off when you use that responsibility to protect yourself instead of cleaning up other people's messes. And the next time someone tries to use me as a shield for their crimes, they'll find out that the kid who always took the fall has grown up and learned to fight back. Sometimes the best revenge is simply refusing to be a victim. And building a life so good that your enemies can only watch from afar, knowing they've lost the right to be a part of it forever.